So this NBA trade deadline's been pretty quiet so far. And obviously in the past, we've had some pretty wild ones. Of course, last season we had Luka Doncic, we had Brandon Ingram getting traded. Years before that, of course, we've had some pretty big ones with like Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton too, for example. There's been a lot of moves at this point in time. Sometimes these deals can actually assemble contenders, like when the Lakers traded for Pau Gasol, right, made the finals right afterwards. There's a lot of potential for franchise altering, postseason entering moves here. Granted, with the new CBA, it has become a lot more difficult because teams in general are not quite as aggressive as going over the cap, getting that repeater tax, or hitting that second apron, right? Which naturally and inherently kind of just makes teams less aggressive because the cost of being aggressive is so much more. In fact, we get a lot of teams, I think, now who are going to be aiming to shed salary, really, to get under that apron and to save some money here. And those moves aren't going to be moves that are going to be moving, like making contenders better or making any team better, really. But of course, there are still some big names floating around. And a number of these guys I actually don't think will get traded. I just made a video about John Morant, so I'm not going to talk about him here, but I don't expect him to be moved. Obviously, it could still happen. I don't think the return is going to be worth it for the Grizzlies, and I don't think the risk is going to be worth it for a team pursuing him. Another player who's really been on the market so far is MPJ. It seems like the only team that's remotely desperate enough to trade like 3 firsts for him would be the Warriors. And look, I think this Warriors era is kind of over. And honestly, like it sucks to waste the rest of Steph's career, but Michael Porter Jr. does not make this team a contender. And yeah, I mean, they can't afford to trade like their 2026 first or 2028, 2030, all those firsts for like a player who, although is very good, is not going to make the Warriors a championship team this season. And there are, of course, still other teams that could make a move for MPJ. It's just, I think if I'm the Nets and I'm Sean Marks, I think that if I wait until the offseason and I could still possibly get 3 picks, and if the asking price right now is like 2, for example, if the Pistons come in and they're offering like 2 picks and like a Sir Thompson, actually I might consider that. But I still feel like that trade is going to be there during the summer too as well, given MPJ doesn't go through like a really bad injury. And look, somebody needs to score the ball in this Nets team. They have a lot of playmakers. I mean, they drafted like 5 of them in the first round who are all kind of the same player. We got to the point where like Yerger Demon is apparently like a 3-point sniper now. But yeah, you still do need someone to score the ball and shoot, of course. So I think there's absolutely benefits to having MPJ on this team. And plus, considering the Nets have no incentive to actually tank, I think that they're just better off keeping MPJ right now. They have plenty of draft capital already. And if they do want to move him, I think this summer will yield a similar result in terms of like picks and stuff like that. And yeah, they'll just have more options and flexibility during that time span. Giannis, by the way, I'm not even going to talk about. When that first report came out that he was exploring trade ideas, like I did not believe that for 1 second. It's not that I don't think Giannis wants to leave. It's just I don't think the Bucks are going to trade Giannis, and I never really honestly thought they would this season. So yeah, but as for a player I actually do think will be traded, I've actually have 2 players on the Kings. The first is Keon Ellis. It's a very obvious one. He's a 3-and-D guy as a guard. His shots definitely regressed a little bit this season. I mean, he was above 40% for his career before this year, but a lot of this is like he's getting really inconsistent minutes with the Kings, and it's very clear that the organization and roster don't really value him that much and probably would not mind trading him away for like 2 seconds or something, right? And yeah, I think the Lakers, I saw a trade online that made a lot of sense. It was basically Dalton Connect and a 2032 second round pick for Keon Ellis. I think that makes sense for both sides, considering the Kings don't really seem to want him that much, and the Lakers get a defender who can also theoretically make threes. Whether or not that'll actually continue in LA is a different question, because that seems to be a trend with the Lakers, but he's a very natural fit next to Luka and AR and LeBron at this point. But the second guy on the Kings, who I think has a really good chance of being traded is DeMar DeRozan. He's quietly actually been really good this season. And of course, he has been aging as you'd expect. I think he's 36 years old at this point. He just dropped 32 against the Lakers. I mean, the league is kind of like moving back a little bit more towards in his advantage, where Nemidi is definitely making a comeback, and DeMar DeRozan is really good at the mid-range shot, of course. It's just a matter of like guys who can, I mean, in the playoffs, right? Like he's someone who you add if you're a playoff contender because the game just slows down. You're not getting as many like easy fast break opportunities. The other team like knows their plays, right? They're not getting as many open looks off that. There's a reason why like efficiency drops so much in the playoffs. And granted, that's because they're playing better defenses too, but you're also playing against like a team that's studying you for 7 games. And sometimes the best teams are just teams that have a dude, multiple dudes who can just say like, screw this, I'll just get a bucket here. And DeMar DeRozan is absolutely a player who, yeah, in the regular season might not be like the most efficient player ever, but in the playoffs when those efficiency metrics drop everywhere across the board, it's good to have a guy who can get a bucket for you and create for his teammates, of course. I mean, he just dropped 32 tonight against the Lakers. So yeah, I think DeRozan should absolutely be a player that teams should target who should not be that expensive given his age and his contract is very tradable. A third name here for the Kings is, of course, Malik Monk. Honestly, you can probably include the rest of the Kings roster here, but LaVine and Sabonis are a lot harder to trade away just given the money situation and their play styles. And Malik Monk is a little bit more team friendly in all those areas. I think the Kings like him a bit more than DeRozan and Ellis, of course. So I imagine they value him a bit more. I don't think they trade Monk for anything less than like 2 firsts, which I don't think Monk is getting unless it's like a package deal with DeRozan. But then like, that means the team is sending out like $40 million in money as well too, which is going to be pretty hard. And yeah, likewise, I don't think Russell Westbrook is going to be traded. But yeah, that's kind of the Kings section at least. Trey Murphy, I did make an Instagram post about this recently. I don't think he's getting moved either. Yeah, I just feel like he's really young still. He fits the timeline. He has excellent chemistry with Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears already. I mean, his game is timeless. He's a 3-and-D guy who's really talented on offense. I really don't see the need for the Pelicans to trade him. Obviously, they do need draft capital because they don't own their picks for the next like 3 years. But I think that you're not getting anybody back who's better than him if you move him for a trade for a couple of late firsts to like the Pistons, for example, right? And unless I get offered something ridiculous like 4 first-round picks, I'm keeping Trey Murphy. Like even like 3 first-round picks, I'm probably still keeping Trey Murphy just because the odds of me getting a player with those picks, especially if it's a team like the Pistons, like I'm not drafting someone better than Trey Murphy with those 25th overall picks or something like that. And again, he's young enough. His deal lasts until 2028, and it's a pretty reasonable deal. It's under $30 million for the most part. Yeah, if I'm the Pelicans, I'm keeping Trey Murphy. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bulls have 2 players, 2 guards specifically, that I think should be traded. The first is Ayo Dosunmu. He's a very hard-nosed defender who has been having a career year offensively this year as well, too, shooting over 40% from 3. He's a guy who, on an expiring contract, I think it's only $7 million a year. I mean, this is a perfect piece for like the Timberwolves to trade a rookie contract like Rob Dillingham, for example, who I think is making roughly the same amount. Rob Dillingham in a first-round pick swap for Ayo Dosunmu. I think that's exactly what the Wolves need. The second guy is Trey Jones, who, of course, is a Minnesota native, so that might make more sense. Ayo is a Chicago native who went to school in Illinois, so maybe the Bulls are more likely to keep him. But I think either of these 2 players are what Minnesota could use and need. They absolutely need a point guard who can actually stay on the court and distribute the ball. Honestly, I don't think Trey Jones is that much better than Mike Conley. Like, I know theoretically he is, but he's not that great of a shooter, and he's not a very good defender. He is a great passer, but Ayo is, of course, a bit of weaker of a ball handler, and I think slightly worse as an actual lead guard. But as a combo guard who can play defense, which is really important, he's better. He's shooting the 3 ball better. And considering you have Anthony Edwards basically kind of playing this like combo point guard role anyways, I think Ayo is a much better fit. And that's the guy I think the Wolves should really go after here. And I know this is kind of a general like players who will get traded talk, but I just really think the Wolves should go after Ayo Dosunmu. Next up, I have Ivica Zubac and Brook Lopez. I think these two guys are a bit less likely. With Zubac, obviously he's been on the Clippers for a long time, and I think the only reason why they trade him is because he's the only guy on their roster who can actually bring back multiple firsts who like they might not actually need. I only say this because in those previous few weeks when Zubac was sitting out, he's back now. Yannick Niederhauser looked kind of good. It was a very limited sample size, and of course, I think that Zubac is a lot better if you're trying to actually win a championship. But I don't think the Clippers actually believe they have a chance at that this season. And I think that, I mean, if you're LA and you just lack any amount of draft capital, if you can go to Boston and be like, hey, give me two late firsts for Zubac, I think like you have to consider that. Brook Lopez too has been playing pretty well as of late for a guy who looked really bad to start the season. But yeah, I would also not look into that. Sorry, I would maybe predict that they're both Zubac is on a slightly longer deal. I also kind of just want Boston to trade for him. I think two late firsts for Zubac is absolutely worth it. They'd probably also have to trade. I don't think they would trade Jordan Walsh, but they'd trade like Josh Minot probably and like Baylor Shireman to make the money match. But yeah, that's another two guys who I think will be moved. Lopez purely just because a team I saw, which Bobby Marks suggested, was Toronto. I think that does make some sense. Jakob Poeltl has been hurt for a while, and the Raptors need a big man. They've been playing Colin Murray Boyles there for a while now. He's more of a power forward at this point, and he's a rookie too. So they do need big man help. Maybe it's Zubac they get, but I think they're looking for someone cheaper just to kind of like fill the void until Jakob Poeltl comes back. So yeah, Brook Lopez to the Raptors. That also makes sense. It's one or the other. I don't think they trade both Lopez and Zubac. It's one or the other. And I hope it's the Celtics who are the ones who do get Zubac because I think Boston could really use him. And it does make sense for the Clippers to get back those two firsts and bet on Niederhauser being capable enough to play some decent minutes this season at least. And finally, our last player on the list here is Jeremy Sohan, who's very much kind of fallen out of the Spurs rotation. He's on an expiring deal, and like he's not coming back to this team after this season. And I think some team who is a rebuilding team that kind of just needs a guy who's going to play hard, pass the ball, like not take a lot of shots, but will help your other young players develop, is going to take a flyer on Sohan. Given Sohan's salary, it's going to be pretty easy to attach like a first round pick to him or 2 seconds and try to bring in like a role player who actually fits this team right now, whether that's another big man or maybe, I mean, not another point guard. I have too many of those, but also like they've all kind of been struggling a little bit recently. But yeah, I mean, Sohan is just a very natural piece to kind of like pair next to a pick to bring in someone. So yeah, if the Spurs are going to make a trade, I think it's going to be Sohan. It could also be Kelly Olynyk, I guess, but I think Sohan just has a little bit more upside value in other teams' eyes. And I think Olynyk still does bring a little bit of like a change of pace role as a big man shooter, whereas Sohan honestly just doesn't really have a spot on his team's rotation. But yeah, that's my kind of short list of guys who I think will and will not get traded. To recap, I don't think Ja's going to get traded, and I don't think MPJ or Trey Murphy will get traded, or Herb Jones, by the way. And of course, like they might still get traded, of course, because at least in the case of Trey and Herb and MPJ, they're going to be highly coveted. It's just a matter of like, I think the assets just aren't really there for teams that are interested. But of course, it could also happen. I'm not ruling any of this out. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed otherwise, though. And I'll see you for the next one.